Hello guys and gals, welcome back to another episode of Haunted Gaming. This time we're doing another Pokemon creepypasta called Missingno Murder. This creepypasta begins with the player and his or her brother telling us about how they avidly used to play Pokemon Red, Blue, and Yellow when the games had first come out. And as the series progressed, the player and his or her brother questioned who would buy the middle game in the series. This would basically be, for example, Pokemon Crystal, Yellow, Emerald. The player bought Pokemon Yellow for the first generation of games. The player and his or her brother now had made a mission to level up their Pokemon to incredibly high levels. And about a year later, the player's brother grew bored and started looking for in-game cheats. The player's brother found many methods of capturing a certain glitch Pokemon called Missingno. So the player's brother decided to use the Old Man glitch to capture this mystery Pokemon. The glitch, however, came with a warning that Missingno could corrupt the game data and cause the game to be unstable, and the only way to fix it would be to restart the game. The player's brother ignored the warning and proceeded with the game and did the glitch anyways. And the warning also seemed to be wrong as well at the time. After numerous attempts, the player and his or her brother finally caught Missingno. The two now wanted to see what this Pokemon could do, and among the first many quirks they found was that Missingno could duplicate items, which allowed the player's brother to keep well stocked on hyper potions. The moveset for Missingno was weird in that it had two sets of water gun in the first two attack slots. The other two attacks the player couldn't remember as he or she was young at the time. After a while, the player and his or her brother kept discovering new quirks about Missingno, and started putting it into Pokemon Stadium, which the game had given the substitute doll model as a placeholder. Then the two siblings looked back at their old save files, and the two proceeded to finish their missions, and proceed on with them. But first, a link battle would have to occur between the two, the player's party versus his or her brother's party, the main contender being Missingno. Halfway into their fight, the brother let out Missingno, and the player's team fell quickly, and soon the player was left with just a Machop, which was strange to the player because he or she would not normally have one in the party. The brother's Missingno unleashed a water gun, and upon hitting the player's Machop, the player thought that it was simply just faint. But then both Machops and Missingno's health started to fluctuate. A second bar had appeared where the XP bar should normally be. This bar would also start fluctuating. Both Pokemons now had all the status effects, the sprites and all ailments mangled together into one space, flashing at the same time. After this, the Machop somehow laid a tackle on Missingno, and after repeated attacks from both sides, Missingno finally used another water gun, and this time the game froze for a brief period. And the sprites for the Pokemon had changed. Missingno would look like Ho-Oh, and Machop would resemble Lugia. The player only noticed Ho-Oh from the intro of Pokemon Gold, however. A couple more seconds of fluctuating health bars and an odd KO scream later, the Lugia resembling Machop had fainted, except the game reported it as Wild Machop had fainted, even though the Pokemon was trained and not wild. The two were confused by this, and the game shut off mid-save. The two figured it was a battery outage and then plugged them into the mains and switched the game back on. Machop had vanished from the party and it wasn't in any storage box. The player thought to himself, the player and his brother thought to himself, maybe we shouldn't have done that. The player went to go catch another Machop but couldn't as no Machops had appeared. A few weeks had passed and the player was bored. The player watched his or her brother play Pokemon on the TV using N64 connectivity. He decided to head back into Lavender Town to fight trainers that he had missed. No one was in Lavender Town, but after some exploration, the player's brother came across a sprite standing next to a tombstone. The sprite had the player's trainer name and it stated, "My poor Machop, I should never have let you into that battle. Please forgive me." Creeping both the player and his or her brother, the Missingno apparently killed Machop. The two scoured the internet to see if this happened to anyone else, and the closest thing the two could find was the original comics, with images of Arbok being cut in half and zombie Psyducks. The player's brother kept playing the game and looking for any trainers to battle, feeling sure that the game couldn't get any weirder than that. But eventually the player's brother came across a trainer, and what turned out to be Missingno's second victim, an NPC's Growlithe. Following the same attack patterns as before, the player's brother eventually defeated the Growlithe. Again on defeat, the game froze briefly and Growlithe had fainted. Although, the game would report it being as a wild Growlithe again. Then, back in Lavender Town, where the two encountered that morning trainer, the NPC who just lost Growlithe also appeared. And when talking to the Growlithe trainer, there were three responses. "My poor sweet Growlithe, if only I knew you would be so cruel." The second one being, "What do you want? Leave me alone." And "How could you be so heartless?" The Machop trainer responded with 4 possible responses, we battle to train and learn about our Pokemon, to get close to them, like I did to him, and just get out of here. This was all the player and his or her brother could deal with. The two treated this as some corrupted save game and overwrote that save with a new file. It seemed like the deaths were to be put into the game but then thrown out at the last minute, and because of the glitchy nature of this Missingno, this was somehow re-triggered. The game plays perfectly now, nothing wrong, but the player and his or her brother will never forget that dark side of Pokemon that was unleashed before their very eyes. Well, that was honestly not bad, but did you notice something? Something different. No blood or gore. Wow! That was honestly surprising. But all kidding aside, it was done quite well. Now, I know it wasn't super creepy, and it certainly isn't no Ben when it comes to overall creepiness, and honestly, it felt more like a creepy theory more than anything else. The best things about this creepypasta is how this stuff, honestly feels real. I mean, yeah, some things feel a little exaggerated to be in a Pokemon game, but it's still believable compared to the others we've read. But really, the shining star here is Missingno, and its use. The creepypasta really grew my interest more with Missingno. Now, if you don't know what this is, it's basically a glitch Pokemon that occurs through the use of the Old Man glitch, and other glitches. In future games, it also appears, and honestly, it's used as a placeholder Pokemon, and its name means missing number. But why it occurs, and I'll heavily condense this, it occurs when watching the Old Man's tutorial. The game stores the player's name to another location in memory, the location that decides what wild Pokemon appear. After the battle, the game retrieves the player's name from the storage place. Now keep this in mind, as you can't really encounter any wild Pokemon in Viridian City, and so that will be the random Pokemon value in memory. So if you leave into a route, that value for deciding random Pokemon will switch to a different value. But let's say you fly to another city, the value will remain the same because you can't encounter any wild Pokemon in any city. Now say you fly to Cinnabar Island and go to the coast where you encounter wild Pokemon, but the game doesn't specify what Pokemon. Therefore, the game doesn't overwrite that wild Pokemon modifier value in the memory, and the player's name still holds that place in memory. The game then accesses that point in memory and comes across the player's name and treats the letters in the name as hexadecimal data rather than character data. The game consists of 6 bytes, the name, and which essentially will determine the wild Pokemon. Now, there are 256 slots for Pokemon, but not all of them are Pokemon. And what that means is, since there are only 151 Pokemon in Pokemon Red and Blue, those other slots really don't have a Pokemon value. They don't have a Pokemon attached. And so say if you encounter these other values, the game would simply throw Missingno up there to prevent the game from crashing, alright? So that's really it. I know it's kind of convoluted to understand. If someone could explain it better in the comments below, hey, feel free. But moving on, reading this, it looked as if I looked at Missingno in an entirely new way. I looked at it as the Zalgo of the Pokemon world. An entity meant to be hidden away, but once unleashed, corrupts its way through the game unchecked. It's just creepy when you think about it. A Pokemon locked away, released, completely emotionless to be honest. Even then in the games, it was speculated that Pokemon can die. I mean, obviously with Lavender Town and the Pokemon Tower being obvious examples. Maybe Missingno truly does kill your Pokemans. I mean, just look at it. He comes. But all kidding aside, it honestly felt quite real despite some exaggerations, here and there. Again, it didn't feel too creepy. But hey, it did unnerve me because of how it showcased Missingno. It didn't lead to blood or gore in the end. It just left me to interpret it as Pokemon Zalgo. And although it had its cliches, I could overlook them as they honestly didn't kill the overall experience for me. And that's really all I have to say about this. The Missingno and its use is pretty cool and definitely did give another perspective, but it was lacking some of that creepy tone but still, it was pretty decent, and I recommend you all to go check it out, linked in the description below. What would you rate this creepypasta, and what would you change to make it better? This has been another episode of Haunted Gaming, and if you like what you saw, then like, comment, and subscribe. This is me, Mudahar, and I'm out.